welcome to Donna Straight Talk. It's been a while. It's been such a while because I think I was just getting ready for COVID or getting comfortable in COVID. So I'm comfortable in COVID and I'm now trying to navigate myself through it to come back and give you the straight talk. And I thought to myself, I wanted to come with the straight talk with somebody that definitely gives the straight talk just like me. And before COVID all started, I met Harprit at an event and I went right up to her after and said, listen, I need you on my show. And I've been procrastinating, I've been second guessing myself, and we're gonna talk a little bit about that because I thought it was really interesting that a lot of the tips that you have are the tips that I'm literally falling into and not really getting over. But I just said, no, I have to get Harprit done. So please introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about you and just what you do and how great you are.
Thank you, Donna. Oh my gosh, I have to give it up to you first. Thank you for having me here on your platform. I really appreciate you and the work that you do. So I really want to give you big ups for that. And just a little bit about me. My background actually is in social work. I lived in the Jane and Finch community, still live in the community now. I've been working in the community for, I would say, the last 17 years in different, departments, whether it's youth, seniors, children. So I have a good amount of experience in that industry. But 5 years ago, when I graduated from university, I decided to kind of learn a little bit more about mortgages and business loans because one of my goals was to, hopefully buy a home in the near future. And when I was in university, me and my friend, we started up a nonprofit organization called Helping Neighborhoods Implement Change. And he also had a clothing brand, Grand Slammers, that I was helping him heavily with. And so, one of the biggest challenges when it comes to business when you don't have money is the capital to scale, right?
Absolutely.
And so I wanted to learn a little bit more about how we can maybe obtain some kind of, loan or something like that, and made an appointment with an advisor at the bank for my first time ever making an appointment with that advisor. And I was so excited thinking I was going to get some great information. And I was honestly turned away less than 2 minutes. I didn't even get an opportunity to sit down before they swiped my card and told me to come back when I had about $60,000 in my bank account.
Wow.
Yeah. And I was just like, no. I'm not trying to leave this session without some value. And they're like, no, we can't help you right now. You need to get your money up and we'll pretty much talk to you $60,000 from now. Well, $90,000 at that point, because I was only negative 30 in my bank account from the student loans I had.
Right.
And so I was a little devastated and, try to do my own homework, but there's just so much information online. It's hard to decipher what's real and not what's fake, and, so much American literature as well. So it's hard to figure out what applies to Canadian systems. And maybe 2.5 years after that experience, my best friend got invited to a session where a financial advisor was breaking down financial concepts. And I was blown away. In 45 minutes, I had learned more valuable information than I did in my entire life of schooling. And I acquired an advisor, and through that journey, maybe 2 or 3 sessions in, things just started to click to me because I was like, I got into social work hoping that I can, fight the power, create
like we all do.
And you quickly realize that that's pretty much not possible, right? And I started to realize, I'm like, oh my goodness, there's a reason why they don't teach this information because it's basic. Why don't teach this to us in school? Because they don't want us to be equipped with the knowledge to be able to be successful in our personal finances. And so then we can continue to be a slave to the system for the rest of our lives. And I was like, oh my God, if I can take my social work lens and combine it together with this financial education, I can see myself taking a community-based approach to this and, potentially then creating systemic change, because then we have money for buying power and ownership, and we don't have to beg a seat at the table. We can create our own table for seats that are like-minded and people who are struggling, marginalized people, you know what I mean?
Right.
So that's kind of how my journey started.
Honestly, I just want to express that when you did the workshop for the students that I was working with, I'm sitting there with my pen and I'm jotting things down to the point where my coworker looked at me and like, calm down, what's going on? Because you're absolutely right. There's a lot of financial advisors that I know that are actually really great. And I think the difference with you is your approach on how, like you said, you took the lens of being in the social work field, and then your the financial advisor one, and kind of blended that together to really speak to these students or to, you know, people in the community that can actually hear, because our culture was not raised to understand finance. It's like a generational gap. Like we just never, our parents didn't have it, our grandparents didn't have it. And so, and the people that do have it don't know how to share it.
Exactly. Absolutely.
You know, and then they say, oh, you know, people don't want to share it. No, I don't think they know how to share it. They just know how to survive, you know?
Yes.
So I just found it how you were displaying that information, why I personally chose you, because like I said, I have some really close friends that are financial advisors and they're great. But why I chose you is the fact that how you get that message across and how you communicate with people to say, listen, stop now, let's stop being slaves, and this is how we can do it. You know, you were hitting those students that they all just went, oh my God, I never thought of myself that way. Yeah. So, you know, this whole session, this whole time that we're coming together and on, you know, Donna Straight Talk is to give people some tips during COVID. I did, you know, this is why it took me so long, Harprit, that I didn't want to come on, or I was having difficulties coming on, getting my podcast back up and running, because I was doing it one way and then trying to change my mind to do it another way, is because I didn't want to talk about COVID.
Yes.
I feel like, one, I don't know if people are going to want to hear what I got to say. Two, it's just like it's so saturated. Everybody's talking about it, and I don't even think people are giving the right tips or the right tools. And I said, you know, I just don't want to do it.
Yeah.
But then as I started talking to you some more, I said, let's just give some tips that either during COVID or after COVID, and if COVID comes again, people will be able to literally work through these tips and elevate to where they need to be. You know, so we are going to just give some tips on how to get on top while living in COVID.
Yes, yes, for sure. Okay. I think there's so many layering factors to this whole COVID situation outside of just finances. And I think it really starts with the mindset, right? Now I know that people are struggling because people are being laid off and the incomes are not looking as fruitful as they were before. But then I'm also getting the other end of the spectrum where people are like, oh my God, $2,000 a month. This is the most I've ever gotten in one shot. Like, let me splurge, right? So I'm hearing two sides of the spectrum. People who are normally used to maybe making $3,000 a month, now they're cut down to $2,000, or even if they're on EI, it's even lower than the $2,000. Whereas people who might have been working part-time are, you know, getting this lump sum of $2,000 every month, which they weren't getting before. So I'm kind of hearing the two sides of the spectrum, but I think one of the most important things to remember is being content. And I say that because I'm hearing so many people say, like, I feel like this COVID thing is affecting my mental health because I can't interact with humans. I can't see people. I can't, you know, and I know that there's, you know, I'm a homebody. So like, I don't feel like it's affected me that much because outside of the work that I do, I like being in my house. I like being alone. I like, you know, just
totally opposite. You're definitely an introvert. I'm an extrovert. And you're absolutely right. Our mental health, and sorry, I don't mean to cut you, but I just want to elaborate the point that how we're so different. And, you know, before it's just like, I look at introverts like, calm down, guys. Like, you can come out of your house once in a while. It's not that big of a deal. But now that the opposite has turned, and I literally get my energy from being around people, from interacting with people, from speaking to people, I have to figure out how to recreate that energy and keep myself okay.
Yes,
you know? So it's a total flip. And I know a lot of extroverts are struggling with the fact that, hey, you got to be home, and we don't know when you're coming out.
Yes, yes. And I think that's the part that's really affecting people is because like at least when you know there's a date, you're like, okay, you know what? August 30th, this is when it's over. I can kind of,
Absolutely.
but then it's like people you're hearing sometimes at the end of 2020, and some people are saying, who knows, maybe it'll stretch beyond 2020. We just don't know, right? And I
Right.
think that adaptability is so key. Um, we really have to really get in tune with ourselves because there's a lot of people that I also hear like, oh, I'm bored. Like, I don't know what to do. And I'm like, this is the perfect time for you to work on your passion projects. Think of something outside of the box that's going to help you excel when this whole situation is over. Because I keep telling people after this COVID-19, I guess, lockdown phase is over, there's going to be two types of people that come out of it. People who are going to continue to struggle worse than before COVID, or people who
100%.
are going to thrive because they've been planning and organizing and really taking this time to work on their craft to accelerate themselves either in their business or something that they're planning on starting, right? And
Exactly. And sorry, we were talking about this the other day, and I want to talk about it
yeah,
because I see a lot of memes going around on Instagram or Facebook, whatever. Like, I'm sick of people telling us to, start a business or work on our passion. Why can't we just chill? It's COVID, it's a pandemic. Okay, you can
yes,
chill, but you
yes,
said something so great the other day. Yes, you can chill if that's what you want to do, but then don't come and complain that, I haven't gotten this done. I'm so behind in this, or I wish I had more time to do this. Don't complain.
yes,
So
exactly.
you're absolutely right. If you want to sit down and kind of do nothing and just Netflix all day or Prime TV or Crave TV or whatever the hell you're watching, that is totally fine. That is absolutely up to you. But at the
Yes,
same time, we work in a field that we're dealing with a lot of people's emotional wellness. And part
yes.
of their emotional wellness is how they are communicating with their self and how they're, and our number one tip, how we're stepping over your fear,
Yes,
right? And part of this, putting yourself in a box or diving into TV or, ignoring your passion is the fact that you're step number one or, tip number one, stepping over your fear.
yes. And I think like you just nailed that on the head. I always tell people, you can complain to me once, but if I've provided a solution to you and you choose not to take multiple of either one of the streams of solutions that I've given you, if you decide to not move on them, please do not come back to complain to me a second time because I'm
Yeah.
not at that point. I'm not listening anymore. That's one of my biggest pet peeves. There's a fine line between venting and complaining. I say this so often. Venting, we all need to vent because we don't want to have our emotions bottled up and explode at the wrong time at the wrong place. So you have to have your close friends or your family who you trust that you can vent to, who's going
Right.
to give you positive criticism and tell you how to maneuver that situation so you no longer have to vent about that. But
Right.
when you vent over and over and over, that's becoming complaining. And so, like you said, if you're content with your situation and you were okay with how life was before COVID and you want to continue your life that way, then this is the perfect time for you to relax, spend time with your family, get all the Netflix in, do whatever it is that makes your heart, fulfilled. But unfortunately, I find that very little people are happy with their situations. I, barely come across people who say that they actually love what they do. I barely come across people who are happy with the money that they're making. I barely come across people who are not living paycheck to paycheck. Even the people who you think are well off are not so well off. And I'm seeing it more and more because of the industry that I'm in. People that I thought was good, and I'm like, oh my God, you're so far from that. But
Right.
Instagram, social media, all these different platforms create an illusion to make you think, okay, this person has everything in order, but in fact, they might not. And so I do find that most people are complaining. And so if you are complaining, you need to change your situation. And this is the perfect time to do so because time is on your side. This is the probably only time in our lives that time is frozen. You don't have to worry about work. And even if you are working from home, you can still manipulate time. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Because You don't have to report to your boss. You don't have to see clients face to face. There's just so much more that we can do, right? Now,
Yeah.
I'm not ignorant or naive to the fact that people have children and kids are homeschooled and all that kind of stuff. So I'm definitely aware of all of that. But I think that there's a way to balance that, right?
Yep. Absolutely.
Anytime you want something, you got to work towards it. And I think that fear, as you mentioned, is one of our biggest roadblocks for many people. And I was telling you the other day, for me, I no longer fear. That's something I've come over a long time ago, because all the things that I used to lack confidence in, all the things that I used to be fearful of, I'm no longer fearful of it because I've put myself in situations of opportunity. And when you put yourself in positions of opportunity, whether it's an opportunity you think it's great or not, I always say yes to an opportunity, because what that does is it helps to boost up my confidence. One, it helps me discover who I am. Two, it allows me to figure out what my passion is. Three, because we've been stuck in a system of schooling for 20 odd years, and we're forced by our parents, by our teachers, by society. But this is what we're supposed to do. This is the line that we're supposed to follow, and everything is supposed to be gravy after here, right? And we all know that the reality is that is far from the fact.
Absolutely.
And so I think that because we've been conditioned for so long, we also put fear in we've kind of conditioned ourselves to be fearful, because if you think about our children, like, they'll tell you what they want to be. They're not thinking about, I need a degree, or I need this, or I need money, or you're
Right.
You know what I mean? But it's us as adults who tell us, well, you can't find a living in acting. You can't find a living in being a social worker. Like, that's something my parents
I heard that a lot.
right? They were like, oh, you're going to be either a lawyer or a doctor. And I'm like, I'm not good at math. I suck at school. I'm not going to be a lawyer. I'm not going to be a doctor.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
So I think that once we put ourselves into positions of opportunity, and you always have to think what the worst case scenario is, because I think in our heads, we create a bigger explosion than what we are actually going to be faced with, which is like a fraction of that, or nothing even close to what we thought it was going to be. And then you come out and you're like, oh my God, like, that's what I was scared this entire time because of that. You know what I mean?
And I feel people are taking fear, like you said, and putting more power to it, and not understanding that it is somewhat of an illusion.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm guilty of it too. A lot of the times I think, oh, I'm afraid to do this, I'm afraid to do that, but you nailed it on the head. I try to think of that 5-year-old girl inside of me, and what would she want to do? You know what I mean? Because she's fearless. Just like you said, it has been taught to us over and over and over again. And the parents, just think about the language that you're telling your kids. Oh, don't do that because this may happen, or don't do that because of our own fears that we're now instilling on them. And it's really amazing to teach your children to be so open-minded, so that their self-doubt doesn't start to control them, because I don't believe it's always fair. I believe it's what has been put into us, and what that 5-year-old self is telling us, or what we've taught that 5-year-old self to say to us, because it's that I can't do, I don't think it will work. And then we're not even seeing the doors that are open in front of us, or the opportunities that are in front of us to even take them, because our doubt is already talking to us saying we can't do it, and that what opens the door to opportunities comes into number 2. Make your goals and find your purpose. So I feel like that one just rolls into, yes, the opportunities can be there, but if you're not making your goals and finding your purpose, what's going to happen?
Exactly. And I think that, like, in terms of goal setting, like, we talk about it so often, but do we truly understand what goal setting is?
And do we do it?
Exactly. Because your goal could be like, okay, I want to be the first millionaire in my family, but we don't think about all the steps in between that are required to get to that. And so you got to take that big vision and break it down into smaller visions, right? And have sub goals, because what ends up happening far too often is we set these big goals. We have like, 3-4 things that we need to think that we need to do to get there. And when we do those 3-4 things and it doesn't result in the big goal, we give up because we become discouraged.
Right.
And you have to really break it down, because becoming a millionaire is not impossible. And I'm learning this more and more every day because of how financially literate I've become over the past couple of years. But the hard part is the discipline, the mindset, the being realistic, right? Because a lot of times we, like I said, we have this big vision. We want to get there overnight. And when things don't pan out the way that we think, it's like, what's happening? Even like for myself, like, even though I've been in the financial industry for 2 years, sometimes people are like, well, it's crazy how quick you, grew your business. And I'm like, my business of the 2 years that I've been doing is a reflection of whatever I've been doing the last 20 years. All the networking, all the relationship building, all the trust, the rapport, even though I didn't realize I was branding my name those 20 past years. And so when you come to me and tell me that, oh, you're so lucky you built this up in 2 years, you're really taking away all the hard
work.
Exactly. You're literally, you're taking that hard work away from me. You're slapping me in my face and telling me that you just kind of fell onto this opportunity and it just happened to work for you. When in fact, it was intentional how I even got here, even though I didn't realize that I was ever going to get into financial planning. Right.
Yep.
So we have to be so mindful of all of those things. We have to be mindful of how we want to set our goals, because those goals, are big. So it might take a few years. And so what do you have to do in the next couple of months, in the next year, in the next few years in order for you to get to that big goal? Because if we set ourselves up for failure by thinking that this is going to be an overnight success type of a thing, there's absolutely no way you're going to obtain that. And more than likely, you're going to discourage yourself and you're going to create fear in your own mind, thinking that, oh my gosh, I wasn't able to do this. Or sometimes you're too busy watching somebody else. You know what I mean? Do not watch anybody else. Pay attention to yourself. Don't worry about how many likes you get. Guess what? People are still seeing it. You know what I mean?
100%.
That's all that matters.
Yep. And they need to see it sometimes 6 or 7 times before it starts to plug into their head that, hey, Harprit's here and she's ready to do it. Do you know what I mean? And I think that you're absolutely right. When I talk about goals all the time, and I am not a fan of these SMART goals, like SMART, like I'm just not a fan, but I do have a process of how I do it. However, I think that people are not taking that pen and paper as seriously as they should, and journaling. Journaling is a form of goal setting. You know what I mean? So if you're deciding, Monday I'm going to, do A, B, and C to get your big goal is to be a millionaire. But, Monday, this is what I did. This is what I still had to do, and blah, 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 blah. Just writing your thoughts down and holding yourself accountable through pen and paper is one of the most important things that, because of, all this fast technology, we have ignored, but really pinning that down to our youth today, and even our people, our age, my age, your age, that can really benefit from putting that pen to paper. Like if you see my desk on a regular basis, there is like sticky notes everywhere and pen and paper. My agenda is all filled up because I really find it important to put my thoughts down and have my goals present.
Yes.
Right? So that's such an important one. Goals are important. Finding your purpose is important. Stepping out of fear. And then the last one, which I find so fun and interesting, especially coming from, a financial advisor, a financial planner, is stop thinking about money, focus on the idea.
Yes. I posted this maybe a few weeks ago, and it showed a person who has a rich mindset versus somebody who has a poor mindset. Someone who is rich in their thinking process, they're not thinking about what type of money do I need to execute this idea. They're just like, okay, this is an idea. I want to figure out how to execute it, whether I have the money or not. I don't know if you've ever read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, but he talks about that in the book all the time. He talked about his, his best friend's father, who was considered his rich dad, versus his biological father, who, didn't have a terrible job. He was a professor, but considered him as a poor dad because always, anytime he had an idea, anything that was outside of the norm, he kind of shut it down and said, we don't have money for that. We can't do this. We can't do that. Whereas the rich dad, even though he didn't have money at certain points of his life, he never discouraged an idea because he understood like what an idea can really become, right? If you hone your focus in on it and really are determined about achieving that goal. And I think that a lot of times we're so fixated on capital, like money capital, but we don't think about the other resources that can help build our businesses, which is sweat equity, right? Human capital is just as important as money, because I always work with the little people who are beside me trying to build. And I say, okay, you know what? I need a videographer. I can't afford, $300 an hour. If I know that you're just starting up your business, I'm just starting up my business, let's just exchange some resources where you help me out with this and I'll help you out with that. And I'll connect you with other people who might be able to help, elevate your craft. And that is so crucial, because that's how I built up my business. I've invested some money, but not nearly as much as most people would invest in their businesses to scale it up to where I have it now. I look for resources around me because, for one, being a social worker working in Gin and Finch, one of the best skills that I've learned is being resourceful without having to put as much money as people might think that you need. And so you can give me $1 million idea. I might not have the money for it right up front, but I will figure out who I can find who's going to help me develop that $1 million idea. Right. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, and it's so important to think outside of the box of money. Don't think about the money, because I feel like people, when you're so fixated on the money, it's your time becomes about, oh, if I didn't get, $100 there, I'm not doing it. If I didn't do this, I'm not doing it. And I'll give you a perfect example, actually. When I first started my business 2 years ago, I had hired this young lady to do some of my videography and stuff like that. And we came up to an agreement for a certain price, and we were both okay with that. In fact, she told me that she thought she was overcharging me and brought that price down. And a few weeks later, she quadrupled the prices. And I think she thought that maybe I was, making all this money. And she's like, well, I'm going to charge you, instead of this much, I'm going to charge you this. And I'm like, whoa, that's a huge jump. And so I had to fire her. And funny enough, she's still where she was when I left her 2 years ago. Whereas if she had continued thinking about the vision, I have grown so much in that 2 years. She would have been growing with me, because every event that I went, the first thing I would do before I would even introduce myself, I would introduce her. I would tell people, reach out to her. And even though she was with me for just 1 month, she got some contacts. You know what I mean? So imagine if she had stuck around for 2 years. She would have made so much more money. She would have gotten so many more contacts, but people get caught up in the greed. And I always tell people, do what you love, do what your purpose is, and the money becomes a byproduct. And that's when you don't feel like you're working, because people tell me I'm crazy, I'm a workaholic, I work too much. And I said, well, guess what? I'd rather be a workaholic doing what I love to do than to be, in your situation, working 8 hours a day and hating my life, because every single day I have to be miserable about getting up to go to a job that I hate, answering to somebody that I don't even respect, somebody that doesn't even respect me. I'd rather be a workaholic. You know what I mean? Because as much as you think I'm working myself down to the ground, I'm not. I'm happy. I'm content. I am, I get excited about getting up early in the morning. I get excited about staying up late, because I'm working on my craft and I know what that's going to do in the next few years, right?
Yep. And you're putting out goals there to build, just keep putting building blocks on top of everything that you're doing for your purpose. And I think, I feel like a lot of people have forgotten what their purpose is and how to really cultivate their purpose, how to grow their purpose, because they're so caught up in what society wants and what society should do, or whatever the case may be. And you're absolutely right. I'd rather be happy. Like, I'm running 2 businesses and I get excited. Like, I woke up this morning like, yes, Harpreet and me are talking. Woo! I'm like, I get excited about stuff like that. And, or if I'm doing my jerk sauce, I'm getting excited about things like that because it's something that I'm building, that I've created, that actually nobody can actually say anything about, you know? And I think that, and I'm not focusing on, hey, I'm going to get this, this, and this out of it. I'm more focused on, just like you said, who is going to see, who's going to learn from this opportunity, who's going to be happy to hear what we're producing, what we're giving, you know?
Yeah.
And I think now that people have the time, I hope that they're doing a few things like listening, not only to the people around them, but to themselves.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because now that things are quiet, you can literally hear your thoughts and hear, hey, this is what you need to do. This is what you need to push for. This is who you need to be. And that's that, again, that 5-year-old who has dreamed so big, who has opened to everything that you wanted to do, but you forgot because there's so much bills to be paid,
Yeah.
or, you know, drives to do, or pickups to do. And it's so amazing now that it's quiet for me, because it's pushing me to do what I really, really wanted to do. And I hope that people can take these tips, and I'll go over them again, but take these tips and really focus on themselves and connect with themselves to see where can they go from here. What can I do during COVID? How can I invest in myself? So tip number 1, step over your fear. Tip number 2, make your goals and find your purpose. Tip number 3, stop thinking about the money, focus on your idea.
Yes.
That's amazing. And I really want to thank you for indulging me and coming on Donna Straight Talk and really just giving them the straight talk, because that's what I like to deliver to my audience. And I really appreciate you, and I appreciate all that you're doing for our communities out there right now. So thank you.
Thank you for having me once again. I really appreciate you. And, you know, it's a team effort. Like, the more we spread the good word, the more, you know, eventually people are going to start to come over everything that we just talked about, right? And I think that, like you mentioned earlier today, our parents came to this country to survive. And so we kind of have adopted those survival tactics. And I think that more and more we're starting to like slowly break out of that. And it does take time, you know, because if you think about it, we've been conditioned for a very long time to think one particular way. It's not going to be like overnight. Someone's just going to sprinkle some information into your head and things are just going to change. But as we continue to listen, as we continue to see a reflection of ourselves on social media, people who are doing things that are from our communities, it's going to give us more power to then, you know, take control of our destinies and make those choices that's going to be conducive to our happiness. Because ultimately, that's what it boils down to, your happiness. No matter what amount of money you have, like, there are people who are content with, you know, a certain amount. There are other people who are not. It's about your happiness. And ultimately, that's what we need to be working towards.
Absolutely. Again, thank you, Harpreet, for coming on Donna Straight Talk. And all my listeners, it is a pleasure to be back. I am excited to have this opportunity to come back to you and, you know, working through COVID and all that jazz. You can follow me on Instagram, Facebook at Ask Donna Marie, and you can go to my website at AskDonnaMarie.com. You can also follow Harpreet at Harpreet, right?
Yeah, Harprit Gill, but my name's spelled HARPRIT GILL_. And you can also check me up on my website as well on harpritgill.com.
Perfect. So thank you all. You can also email me at AskDonnaMarie@gmail.com for these tips. I can give anybody these tips just in case you want a PDF of them. So you can email me. Thank you guys, and it's been a pleasure.